This is White Lightning 777, and this is just going to be the intro to the Helping Our Allies video. The point is, I kind of, got into the nuts and bolts of it before looking at the big picture. The big sky viewpoint from high altitudes is why have allies in the first place. The United States has continuity of government. In the event of total or massive national destruction, our leaders have caves and little rat holes they can hide in and tunnels. They'll be fine. The top 1% will be fine. But you have to ask, where do the rest of us go? Well, there's bomb shelters, there's things there. But ideally, you want to have allies, enough allies to the point where they can take in your population. Now, America has about 30 million people. Let's say 300, well, with the illegals, we'll say 340 million. So really, with the women and children, you want to, realistically, that's about 200 million women and children, and you want to be able to, at minimum, get them out of the country. So you need to have so many allies that, if necessary, all or part of that population of 200 million people can leave the United States and be temporarily or permanently housed elsewhere. Allies are necessary so that you can protect your population, your nation state. That is the national security objective. And we, the people, are the nation. The national security isn't for those elites. It's for us. And creating enough goodwill around the world to where Americans can flee if they need to, or even in a non-crisis situation, just travel to, is highly desirable, and it is in the interest of the United States. So, let's go on to the main show of the video, now that I've presented a little more big picture context here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777. Do another video, another political video, politics, on how to actually help our allies and friends overseas and what they actually need. So we'll start with, I guess, our newest, Ukraine. There's this perception that somehow we're giving them all this ton of money, $100 billion or whatever. Of course, that number lacks context. Do these people who complain about that know how much money we've given Israel or Germany or spent in the Marshall Plan, or how much money we spent giving medical care to Japanese Americans, or Japanese people after World War II, after we nuked Japan and we rebuilt that? It's a pittance. It really is. Do they even know the size of the budget? I mean, they'll say, well, it's 10% of our budget. No. It's 10% of the military budget, which is 3.7% of the total budget. So it's what we're giving Ukraine is 0.37% of our budget. And to do that, and in exchange for that, Putin has stupidly thrown away between half to 2/3 of his military. Okay? He's a fool. He doesn't know how to pull out. Even a disastrous Afghanistan or Saigon-style withdrawal would be an improvement for Russia at this point. The Western weapons that Ukraine is getting are essentially military surplus. I mean, see, you have to realize, people don't realize, that the F-18, F-15, and F-16 are obsolete. They're going to be replaced by F-22s, F-35s, and the new Gen 6 fighter that, they're going to declassify, that's going to be declassified soon. It's the one that can control drones and fight at the same time. So we're just giving them stuff that normally you would be spending money to store. We're putting it was designed to fight a war in Europe. That's what it was made for. and that's where it should go to die. So if you're giving somebody something that costs you money to store and that you were going to scrap, in what sense are you spending money? And whose money is it? $100 billion, right? Okay, sounds like a lot. But what about $2 trillion? If you look at the 1,700 nuclear weapons and close to 50 White Swan long-range bombers, the Tupolev ones, that the Ukrainians gave up for a security guarantee that is proving to be somewhat dubious, although somehow they're winning. Not thanks to Biden, thanks to Zelensky, not to Biden, and help from Poland and Czechoslovakia and some of the Baltic states. I mean, the Europeans are fortunately taking charge of their affairs because they realize a dementia patient in the White House simply is not capable of running a war. It's not by choice, it's because they have to, and in a strange way that's good. But $2 trillion, all that stuff, those nukes that Bill Clinton tricked Ukraine out of having, that they had every right to have and should have been encouraged to keep, and the bombers that they had every right to have, that they should have been encouraged to keep. And by the way, why didn't the United States fly one or two of those over here and take it apart and reverse engineer it and see how it works and see if it's actually if it's better than our own B-1 bomber? Because the White Swan bomber, it's kind of like the Russian version of the Flying Bone. It's similar in some ways, roughly equivalent. Not completely, but roughly equivalent. I mean, it's the same. If you saw the profile of one, you could easily confuse the one for the other. Unless you have a sharp eye. Or you're an aviation expert. So you trick a country that is newly independent, that is essentially a third world country, out of $2 trillion. And that's what Democrats do. Democrats lie, cheat, steal, and disarm people that are at risk of being victimized by others. That is their modus operandi. The Ukrainians should have waited for a Republican to get in before they made a deal with the devil. But, they're not familiar with our culture, and we're probably not all that familiar with theirs in some ways. So, if you steal $2 trillion in exchange for security guarantee, and you don't have the security, well, you can either A, take the cheap course and just give Ukraine what is necessary for win, so they win the war and would thereby satisfy the guarantee, or B, give back every one of those nuclear weapons and those bombers. 1,700 nuclear weapons cost a hell of a lot more money, and these were the Soviet ones. These were not those, rinky-dink atomic bombs that are just, 1 or 2 million apiece. No. These suckers are like at least $500 million, minimum, to $1 billion per bomb, per warhead. That's how many, it was 1,700 bombs, and these had multiple warheads on them. And they have a rocket that flies and that costs even more. So whose money is it? So yes, we should give Ukraine what the reasonable thing is, give them what's necessary to win. An F-16 can be replaced with another F-16 or an upgraded aircraft. An American soldier cannot. And the Ukrainians want to fight and win, and they will. They're Cossacks, they're world's first freedom fighters, and they will win if they have the hardware. Because they'll fight till every last one of them is dead. Russians, not so much. 3 million Russians have fled. Putin likes to say, I mobilized 300,000. Well, he fell short of the quota, but over 3 million Russians fled the country. And how many of those 3 million went to Ukraine or decided they'd fight for Ukraine? Probably quite a few. So whose money is it? And the other thing you can do to help our allies is if you have a Ukraine flag on your car, don't put Freak of the Week on your car. They don't need to see a Ukraine flag and some minor attracted, transgender, psychotic, deranged, queer to the core nutcase thing right by it. For one thing, that's not the way Ukrainians live. Most of the people who support Ukraine don't even know that it's an Orthodox Christian country, or that those people are right-wing. Part of having a warrior society and a warrior ethic is the right-wing thing to go with it. And you can, look at those little barrage videos, the ones that shows that all, the ones that make you believe that all Ukrainian women are witches. Okay. Many. In fact, there's a small grain of truth to that. But in Slavic countries like Vlachland in Serbia or Ukraine or even Russia, witchcraft is associated with ultra-Orthodox traditions. In other words, the witches are to the right of most right-wingers. They're not leftoid idiots like these, pretend fake-ass Wicca people that we have over here. So, don't be a freak. Being a freak just helps Solovyev and, Marina Simonova, the ones they call potty mouth. I can't pronounce the Ukrainian word for that, but, that just helps their propaganda. If you're going to support our allies, don't, disgrace yourself in the process, because if you make yourself look like a total gutter skank, and you're associating yourself with our allies likewise are skankified by your skankiness. Does that make sense? Okay, and the last thing we need to do is to fix the United States. I mean, who's gonna fly the F-16s over to Ukraine if everybody's addicted to fentanyl and they start going into withdrawal in the cockpit? Now, the plane, to do that mid-air refueling, I mean, you got to have a steady hand for that. You're wearing that oxygen mask and you go in withdrawal and start puking, you're probably going to crash the plane. Or if you overdose and die, no one will be there to fly it. I mean, yeah, if you want to save other countries, including, let's say, give political asylum to people who rightfully deserve it, and who are willing to be assimilated and become proper American citizens, which I'm in favor for. West is the best. Our civilization is superior. And as far as I'm concerned, every single individual that we civilized is just one less person that we're going to have to kill later. It's better to have them on our side. So, yeah, we do want to civilize those who can appropriately be civilized. But you're not going to be able to get the right people in if you have all these damn illegals sucking up the money. I mean, if you really want to house those Russians who are fleeing Russia and don't want to be war criminals and don't want to commit war crimes, and they don't want to be Joseph Mengele, and they just want to stay home and work hard and play hard, and you want to give them asylum, well, you got to throw the illegal aliens and MS-13 scum out of the country to do that, because we don't have room for everybody. You have to prioritize. Either you help those who deserve it or those who don't, or no one. I mean, that's, the country, and Ukraine does have a lot of landmines they've pulled out of the ground that would work great on the Texas border. And they've got plenty of Russian POWs who, in exchange for permanent residency in the United States, would be delighted to lay down, give them a quota. If you place 5,000 landmines on the Texas border per person without injuring yourself, and you don't get drunk and you show up sober every day, you can have a residency in the United States. You can mine the border. I mean, landmines control the movement of enemy personnel. And these, gang MS-13 gangbangers aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. They're not that smart. They're just not. And here's the other thing. Because the Democrats enabled Putin to invade Ukraine and commit the atrocities at Bucha and other places, they are war criminals. And here's the best case scenario, I saved the best parts for last, potentially, if these leading Democrats who were in power at the time that Ukraine was robbed of their nukes, if they're stripped of their citizenship and sent to The Hague for war crimes, and hopefully Russia will admit defeat and lose, hopefully, maybe if they want to get out, ever have trade partners or sell a single drop of oil to anybody ever again, they'll have to strip Putin, Shoigu, Prigozhin, and Kadyrov of their citizenship and send them to The Hague. All of these people should be sent to The Hague, put on a Nuremberg style for war crimes, and then executed. Now, what does getting a few of these leftoids do now? Of course, we all know that Hillary Clinton has most likely assassinated dozens of Americans and her political enemies over the years, and it would be kind of ironic to get the Clintons for war crimes committed in another country and not their own. Oh, well, of course, she bragged about assassinating Gaddafi as well. That's also a war crime. That's also an ICC material. The thing is, once you get them on war crimes through creative legislation and through popular will, with a carefully orchestrated campaign of propaganda, we can set the stage in the country to ban socialism and ban theocracy and ban the Democrat Party and disband them the same way that the Germans banned the National Socialist German Workers' Party and those who would imitate it. Once freed of leftoidism, the United States can truly begin its to rise. Because let's face it, the West is the best. Always has been, probably always will be, barring future developments or maybe contact with a superior alien civilization. That's the way it is. We can use this situation not just to help the Ukrainians and right a wrong that we committed against people who did nothing to harm us, but to rid ourselves of the CCP, DNC, and reclaim the country for the people, by the people. Long live the Republic. This is White Lightning 777, signing out.